Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to follow a little different format here. First of all, I'm going to tell you, I've never stood out and bragged that I was a feminist. But the one thing I will tell you, I did? Sorry, thanks, dear. But the one thing throughout my working career, most of my working career, I've always believed in working with women and treating them equally and with equal respect to the men that I worked with. Now, most of the people in this House know my background was in the RCMP, and I spent 35 years doing that. And the RCMP was one of the first government agencies, going back into 1974, where we decided to allow women to join the force and become regular members on the street. And that was by Commissioner Naden. And in March 1975, they hit the streets working with us men. But I'm going to go a little back in the history of the RCMP. And this is all talking about women, gender equality. And it's very important to realize that this is nothing new. It's just that we're starting to respect it a lot more now than we did in the past, and that's unfortunate that we didn't do it in the past. But I want to talk a little bit about the past. In the organization that I was proud to serve for 35 years, we've had women in the organization going back into the 1800s. Many of them worked as matrons for us in the detachments across the country, guarding men, guarding women. Many of them worked as clerks. And even into about 1920, we started hiring them as lab technicians to work in our labs to help solve cases. They worked as clerks in many of the bigger detachments. They played a very important role. They definitely weren't paid the same as regular police officers, and that may be unfortunate. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, in Canada, as Canada grew, there was many RCMP detachments across this country. And many of them were one, maybe two-man detachments. And there might be one member there, and he had his wife. And a lot of people didn't realize that a lot of the wives of RCMP officers, when their husbands were way out on patrol, whether it was on a horse, could be by dog team, could be whatever means he was, lots of times they played an equal role to him in handling minor investigations in the community when their husbands were out. They did counseling. They took complaints. I can recall back a number of years ago when we had a murder in a community I was at. And the culprit wouldn't talk to any of the police because his lawyer told him not to. But he knew he was wrong in what he did. So he went and gave a statement to my wife, who gave it to me. I gave it to the Crown Counsel, and the case was resolved. So women have always played a very important role, and I believe that they are equal to men. Now let's move up to 1974. I think I had about 6 years service then when Commissioner Naden announced that the RCMP would be taking women into the force. Many of us, hey, this was a man's occupation. And I remember talking for about a year there between 1974 and 1975. They can't do the job. They can't break up a fight. They can't go out on patrol by themselves. This is a man's world. Only men can do this kind of work. Well, 1975 arrived and they started coming out in the field. And I think I can only say it in a few words. Wow, were we wrong. Mr. Speaker, women, when they joined the force, 30 of them graduated in 1975 with the first troop and were spread out across Canada. Now, like any organization, they were new to us, and I think we made mistakes because we didn't treat them equally. They were new, they were unique, and we used a lot of them for propaganda and for promotional things and for parades and stuff like that. We gave them a special status, and it really bothered the first group of women to come out, the first few troops, because they wanted to do a job equal to what we, the guys in the field, were doing. And they soon made it very apparent that they were equal to us and didn't think they needed to be treated any different. And you've seen it change over the years where their uniforms have become the same as the men's, and we got away from all the specialties that were in there. So we made mistakes in learning how to work with women. But the one thing I learned very early, and I'm going back to about mid-70s again, a little later, the first two women I worked with, Doris and Anne, and I learned to respect the ability that a woman could handle the same role as a man in the job of being a police officer. In fact, it didn't take me very long to learn that they could probably do a better job in a lot of cases than I could do. Domestic cases. Wow, I always loved having a female member with me in a domestic case. Cases dealing with children. But you know, one of the things that really surprised me, I was policing in a community that was probably one of the roughest communities in British Columbia. We had 7 reserves surrounding the community. It was a violent community. Lots of fights going, lots of stabbings and that stuff. And we had 2 women posted to our detachment. And we were worried about them. But we didn't have to. They were able to integrate in just as well as we were. In fact, when we went to a bar disturbance, I could guarantee you if 2 male members walked into the bar disturbance, there probably would be a continued scrap go on. But if I walked in with a female member, it usually stopped. One, you can be in a rough, tumbling, logging community, but people still respect women. How much time I got left? Oh, not very much. Hey, you better hurry up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remember in one incident where one of our female members walked into the bar, and we always told her not to do it, but I guess we were busy. But she went in there by herself. There was quite a ruckus going on. She tried to arrest a guy who resisted her, and I still remember the people telling me that half the bar got up and helped her take that person and put him in the back of the police car. He got a little roughed up on the way, but that's irrelevant. If it would have been me, I would have had to scrap him all the way in. So they've always played a very important role, and I think that people who haven't had the opportunity to work side by side with a woman in an equal environment, you'll learn that they can do the similar job, so they should get the similar pay and be treated equally. You know, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. You know, recommendation 14, that the Government of Canada, following consultation with the federal departments and agencies as well as civil society, introduce legislation by June 17. This has to happen. I mean, it has been happening for many years in many government agencies. As I just mentioned, the RCMP, March of 1975, we started working with women. It's very important, but we must look at it across Canada and treat women with equal respect, equal pay for equal work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.